Okay. So I just got done just reading the chapter, reacting to it with everyone. Thank you everyone for coming through and reading it with me. That's always a great time, right? If you want to be a part of it, I'll put the channel in the description box down below. I'll put the stream if you just want to see my initial reaction to the chapter. Yeah, I can't stop smiling. I think I'm just gonna be in a great mood all day. It's that type of chapter. I don't know where to start. I gotta be more selective in the things I talk about because I'll be talking all day because there's so much to talk about in this chapter. I know I sound like a broken record. One of the best chapters in Wano so far. No, but seriously, one of the best chapters in Wano so far. But guys, okay, if you've never seen this channel, this is something we do every single week. The chapter is out, we talk about it, and if you want to be a part of that, subscribe to the channel right now, drop a like, and without further ado, we're not gonna waste any more time. We're gonna get into it because I'm still on a high, right? It was just like an adrenaline rush, and it didn't stop. The chapter went on and on and on, and I wasn't sure where we were going with this. Then I was like, oh, okay, that's where Oda was going. So, okay, let's start from the top. We don't talk about the cover stories till Sunday, but shout out to Vivi. We love Vivi over here. Vivi coming back to the Straw Hats. So shout out to Vivi, right? Now, chapter starts off, we go back to Zoro and Sanji versus King. Oda is setting the stage because last chapter, a lot of people felt like, okay, the other Straw Hats are done with their fights. Formidable Straw Hats, Jinbei and Frankie, for instance, fairly fresh because it doesn't seem like Who's Who and Sasaki put up the fight that we expected them to. I mean, it was a decent fight. However, Jinbei and Frankie, they don't seem to be that hurt. Robin, she's out of it. I mentioned she was fresh last week. I don't know what I was talking about. Robin passed out because she expended herself. Jinbei and Frankie, they should be all right. So it was like, well, why don't they go help Sanji and Zoro? Oda's letting us know here. We have here Goro and Kawamatsu, two formidable fighters in their own right. They're there and they're like, okay, look on their faces. It doesn't seem like anybody at this point can interfere. They're fighting the All-Stars. So I gotta be honest with you guys. The All-Stars, I have a certain expectation for them, but I don't think the threat matches what was trying to be conveyed here a little bit. What I mean is I have a lot of faith, just this unwavering faith in Zoro and Sanji. I was like, yeah, they're All-Stars, but that's Zoro and Sanji, right? So that's how I felt. So I'm a homer, right? I'm a straw hat for them damn near. So I'm like, that's Zoro and Sanji. And the thing is, based on portrayal and how they've grown and what they've shown this arc, what I've seen from Sanji and Zoro, especially last chapter, I'm like, yeah, those are All-Stars, but again, that's Zoro and Sanji. Again, Oda is letting us know Zoro is healed, right? So he should be 100%, but the drawback, I mean, that's going to be devastating, right? It's going to affect him a lot for him to be healed after taking an attack like that. All these broken bones, out of commission, in a splint, now he's back fighting fully. A drug like that can only have a devastating drawback. It's almost like Gear 4th, right? Where Luffy, he can fight that powerfully, get that much strength, but can't use haki for 10 minutes. A huge drawback, especially when you're fighting someone that's top tier. So, you know, it makes sense for it to have a drawback like this. And Oda's driving that point home. Now that brings us to Marco. Marco's daydreaming on the battlefield. Like, he's looking at King like, and he's thinking back to what Whitebeard talked to him about, where Marco, again, he's been on the crew for a very long time. He was there as a kid. So now he's thinking back to what Whitebeard talked about, where last chapter he referenced King was a part of the Red Line, or he used to live atop the Red Line. And he was, you know, a bunch of fire conjurers. Now he's thinking back to Whitebeard saying they thought it was only the Celestial Dragons on the Red Line, or rather Mary Joa. Whitebeard said, I'm talking about the distant past when gods were up there. For me, when I think of gods, I mean, immediately I think about Enel, but then people like Enel, the Birkins, the Skypians, the Shandorians. And even in this chapter, we find out that King is a Lunarian, right? Whatever the heck that means, meaning, I mean, what you surmise is that he's from the moon. And so when you think of the gods, and they already said King was somebody living atop the Red Line. So now it's like, okay, these people were there before the Celestial Dragons. So then the Celestial Dragons, they descended upon the Red Line because they felt like it was structurally a better place to kind of look over, look down upon the world. They were like, we want that. So now it seems like before, like the Void Century, it was a hostile takeover. But for them to have all this power to rid the world of these gods, and then they came down and then they proclaimed themselves as gods. It's weird because now with the D, it's like, okay, God's natural enemy. What's going on there? Was this a thing before the Celestial Dragons? Are they God's natural enemy because of what predated them? So it's leading to so many different think pieces because you're saying gods existed before Mary Joa. There was something on the Red Line. There were people quote unquote gods on the red line before Mary Joa. I'm like, what, is he talking about actual gods? I'm losing my mind over here. And I like that moment between Izo and Marco. Like Marco, he doesn't need to be saved, but he is a bit banged up. Like he could recover, like he can heal himself. But Izo's still, you know, they're crewmates. They've been crewmates for a very long time. And Izo's like, come on, Marco, what are you doing? He said, well, you know, I'm just here, man, just daydreaming. You got to get it together. He's like, I know you would save me, you know? So that was a cool moment. I did enjoy that. And he asked, like, do you believe in gods? I said, you sound like Pops when he was drunk. But for Whitebeard, I mean, there's nothing that Whitebeard says that I don't believe. Like, I believe everything Whitebeard says because he's a veteran pirate and he's somebody of high integrity, right? He's somebody that with a moral compass that you can trust in the One Piece world. So whatever he says, and because of how the longevity of how long he was around, I believe it. And again, his affiliations, that's important. Rocks, he was a part of the Rocks crew, and Rocks was dangerous enough that they erased him from the world. They erased his entire existence. So with that being said, Rocks trying to rid the world of the celestial dragons, was he trying to basically get the world back to the way it was, right? Because the world, the celestial dragons, it seems like they imposed themselves on the actual gods, took over, and then proclaimed themselves as gods. So was Rocks wrong? I mean, people are gonna say, well, inherently killing is always wrong. Well, there are situations, but it's a weird thing because, bro, speculation. What's going on? Who were the gods that predated the CDs? And I'm just like, I need more of this, Marco. You need to daydream a little more, drop some more blurbs, some more thoughts, think some more things, look at King and think about what's going on. Bro, what? So now we're getting some more information about the All-Stars, meaning the lore about them. We knew that they were powerful, but Queen is, you know, he's a talkative. King is just there. Queen is just talking, the mouthpiece, saying, well, we're all stars for a reason. We're an unstoppable force, which goes back, in my opinion, to resilience. The reason why they're all stars is because you really can't take them out. Like, you have to do a lot to put them down, which Jack got put down earlier by Inarashi Nekomamushi combined Sulong, which, you know, was meant to hype Sulong for him and just show how powerful it was. And now you kind of got to respect it more because of how Queen is talking, saying, hey, we're very resilient. I mean, Jack came back, right? But that's important to note. Something that was weird to me, I'm not sure how to process it, how to take it, what to make of it, is Sanji's comment, right? Because, okay, Sanji said, since the second time using the raid suit, his body feels off. Okay, there are a lot of things that I can surmise from that, but Zoro's like, you know, are you slowing down? Don't get in my way. But, you know, it's like, well, maybe his body's just adjusting. But with the transition of the chapter and how the chapter kind of flowed, I'm like, is Oda saying that Sanji's body is somewhat mutating because he's using the raid suit? It may be a slight jump, but it's weird because the second time, after your first time, that's when your body should feel weird, right? Your body should feel weird after the first time, like, my body just, the second time, it's like either the more times you use it in a day, the more fatigue, right? Could be that, something as simple as that, or it could be Sanji's body, because he's using the raid suit and what it was made for, it is somewhat messing with his DNA. And then we find out about King being a Lunarian, but we'll get to that. And I'm just saying, it was a weird thing for Oda to put in there. Like, it wasn't in there with the first time he used it, but this is something that maybe Sanji's progressively, every time you use the raid suit, it inflicts damage on your body in some way. It's draining your stamina. It could be something as simple as that. But that's something that popped in my head. Is Sanji changing? Which would be another, you know, thing that people, okay, it's weird because sometimes people don't like the fact that Sanji got the raid suit. They feel like he didn't earn it, which is weird to me because I'm like, he went through all that as a kid. The least he could get from Germa is something to aid his journey, aid his king, his pirate king, right? He's more than earned this raid suit. He used to get beat up as a child, thrown away, locked up in a cage. They basically disowned him. He did all that. He doesn't deserve a suit. He didn't earn the suit. But yes, you're saying as a power-up, it wasn't training. I mean, obviously, there's something else going on here where for the raid suit, it's affecting his body. So now what are we gonna say? What can we say now, right? Let's just stop. Let's just stop. Let it ride. Let it ride, okay? I gotta say as well, these panels are beautiful, especially with them just saving each other. Like, I like that back and forth. And I think they understand the assignment. They understand that this fight is really important. I mentioned in the last chapter, but how they're stepping in for each other, right? And I think it's not gonna necessarily be a tag team match. I think it's gonna be a 1v1, but occasionally they may step in and help each other, right? Because they're fighting so close together. But the difference here is that, I mean, I think they're gonna keep getting separate and kind of separating a bit more, right? They're not going to stay in close proximity to each other. I don't think so at all. But in the midst of them saving each other, Queen, is like, oh my God, like you're modified, right? Sanji's like, well, no, I'm a regular human, unlike my siblings. And I felt like I was Queen at some point, where I was like, Sanji's definitely, right? Like, I don't care what they say, he's definitely mutated. And Sanji's like, no, I'm not. That's not me. I'm a regular human. He's like, what are you talking about? Regular humans don't just burst into flames. It's not like you're a Lunarian. King looks at him. Shit. So, okay, King's race is revealed. Lunarian, lunar, you think a moon man, somebody from the moon. So he's affiliated with, it makes a lot of sense. He has wings. Birkins, Shandorians, Skypians, and then Lunarians. They were one of them. I'm sorry I didn't get a video out. I was working on a video about King. I was talking about him and how you had the Skypians and Birkins in the sky, Shandorians on the blue sea. Then you had, the white sea for the Birkins and the Skypians, Shandorians on the blue sea, and then you had the Lunarians on the red line, right? But now we know there are other things, other people on the red line. Gods. Who else? Might not be another race, but could it be the D clan? Okay, so something I was thinking about as well, right? And this is a weird thing, a weird transition, but I was thinking about Orochi and how Orochi basically took the lore of Odin and tried to make it his own. And they were teaching the kids the lore of Odin, but they were saying Orochi did all the things Odin did. Did the celestial dragons basically take what the ancient kingdom were regarded as? Were they regarded as gods because they had the ancient weapons? So with them having that much power, Poseidon, Pluto, Uranus, did they take this and try to spin it and now they're the gods? But then how does the D come about? Where would the D come from? There's still more things to figure out, but we're getting closer. We're getting closer. Hopefully I can drop that King video soon. Hopefully, we'll see. Now there's an interesting conversation here between Zoro and King. They're talking about fighting styles. Well, not necessarily. That's not the focus, right? It's just King has a very unique sword and King in the middle of the sword battle punches Zoro, which leads to a very interesting dialogue, which I think will lead to very toxic dialogue on the internet. So, okay, how I took this was Zoro saying you're a bloodthirsty brute, and King is saying I don't know why anyone would stick to traditional forms and techniques in battle, meaning the goal is to win. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to win. I have a sword, but Zoro is saying, well, I guess you didn't say you were a swordsman. Very interesting dialogue because people automatically, instantaneously thought of Mihawk and Shanks, which I did as well. I was like, ooh, very interesting for King to say that. However, Zoro said he had a point, right? And I think in those discussions, both sides always have points. What's interesting here is that Zoro says, all right, you never said you were a swordsman, but be clear. Let me be very clear. I will be willing to bite your throat out if that means getting the victory, because this is very important. I cannot lose here. So again, this brings back the debate of pure swordsman technique, all these different things, but then Zoro kind of dismantles that entire thing by somewhat saying, well, I'm willing to do whatever it takes as well, right? So even though I'm a pure swordsman, I use pure techniques, I'm somebody that's willing to go the extra route, an extra mile to do whatever it takes to win, which, all right, if Zoro is willing to do that, does that mean Zoro isn't a swordsman? Right, so that's the thing where it's like Oda is playing with it. I think he understands the clamor, the back and forth about Mihawk and Shanks, or just what's a swordsman, what's not a swordsman. And he's specifically saying here, it's like, well, I don't use traditional techniques. I don't, but Zoro's like, well, I use traditional techniques and I'm willing to do whatever it takes too. So now what? Where are we now? So it's going to be a heavy debate, but I think it's going to lead us back to Zero, because this conversation led us back to Zero, in my opinion, right? But it did revive the debate. Okay, there's so much more to go. This chapter's jam-packed, man. Okay, so quickly, they're fighting. We have Hyogoro, we have Kawamatsu. They're talking about how, basically he didn't object to Zoro getting the sword because his fighting style pretty much resembles Orochimaru, who is a direct descendant of Ryuma, and that Zoro's fighting style is just like Ryuma. It's uncanny, they said. And they mentioned the fact that he brought Shusui back to Wano, so it must be fate, and the fact that Ryuma is also one-eyed samurai. Now this goes back to SBS 96, where Oda talked about this, the Shimotsuke. Oda talked about the Shimotsuki, just a timeline with Kozaburo and all that, which I suggest you go read. I'll mention in the breakdown on Sunday. But, this is leading to a lot of Zoro lore, and if you haven't read Monster, I'd probably review Monster this week, like honestly, just for people to understand Monster and why this is important important for Zoro's future in Wano, right? So we'll talk about that, but that's really big news in my opinion, especially for, you know, people that have certain beliefs, right? So it's almost expected, but it's still shocking. Then we have the Minks, Inuarashi versus Jack, and we have Nekomamushi versus Perospero. I don't feel like those battles feel the same. It feels like Inuarashi has a more daunting task, but that's just me underestimating Perospero. And I apologize to Perospero that I do this. I just don't see him in that light. However, I probably should, and maybe I'm coming around, but it seems like these are their final fights, their final battles. I mean, Jack is an all-star, right? And he's fighting him by himself this time. Sulong mode, there's a hole in the wall, hole in the ceiling at least. And then we have Perospero versus Nekomamushi, which the elder son of Big Mom, he's fairly powerful. I don't think he's the strongest Katakuri, but he's fairly powerful. And Perospero, I mean, he's the only one out of all the siblings that made their way to Onigashima. The others, they're just stuck. It's sad because I feel like Daifuku should be able to fly because of it. Whatever. So I'm gonna start giving Perospero his props because he deserves it. We then had Raizo and Fukukuju, some more of that. But what I would really want to talk about really quick is Momonosuke. He's an adult. And he looks a bit more menacing than Kaido. I'm not gonna lie to you. He's an adult. Something that I want to key in on as well is Shinobu. She's looking at Oden or looking at Momonosuke saying, "You remind me of it." She's crying. So more than likely she sees Momonosuke and his appearance, his resemblance is just like Oden in my opinion. So right now Momonosuke looks like Kaido and he looks like Oden. We had mentioned chapter 310, the cover spread for that. And it's pretty much the same thing. It's Oda showing us, I mean, it's foreshadow in my opinion, where Oda's showing us just what was to come. Of course we wouldn't know anything, but it's amazing, right? It's amazing. Momonosuke's an adult now. I have completely different feelings about him joining the crew. We're going to talk about all this. I'm going to get in depth with everything, I promise. May even have a guest for this breakdown on Sunday. We'll see. But yeah, guys, One Piece chapter 1023, probably the best chapter Wano so far. And I think somebody can make a compilation of how many times I've said that. But it's true. Like every single week, Wano it keeps going. It keeps going. And wow, I think this has been my longest just reaction review yet. Because wow, right? But guys, give me your thoughts. How do you feel about the chapter? There's much more to talk about, but we're kind of out of time. So give me your thoughts. Make sure to like the video if you did. Subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Follow me on Twitter at BrogODAce. Follow me on Instagram at BrogOD.ace. The reaction will be in the description box down below if you want to go check that out. I had a great time there. Shout out to everybody that came through. Again, like the video, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.
I start doubting me, I felt lost.